no.
Liliane Pilot. First of all, what you need to know about Liliane is, well, I call her Lily. And she just arrived from Mexico after being a week down there. Mexico, right?
Yeah, in Japan.
In Chapala, with a few other folks from CSL who went to a big time hootenanny, I call it, the CSL hootenanny in the Southern Hemisphere, correct? And so she just got home last night. Well, not even home. She hasn't been home yet. 12:30 or something. Well, yeah. So there's a few folks who are working on an extra octane here. Anyway, Lily is, like I said, she's a religious science certified practitioner, and she started out reading this book called As a Man Thinketh. How many people have read that book? Yeah, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. She's read it at a very young age, and that was her turning point for her beginning of her. And she says that she has been studying and observing thought ever since. I love that. She has a degree in arts administration, but she's also she's done administration of art, but she's also an artist herself. And you've seen her artwork here. You remember, some of you, like Ken and I, might actually have some hanging in our homes. And she's performed and she's a singer-songwriter as well, and she's performed music around the country, around the continent, I should say, and North America. And she also has 4 recordings, so get with her sometimes if you want to hear some of those and buy maybe a CD. What I was very interested in reading this I didn't know, is that she has done this work on the use of sound and music in healing. And so she's actually not just studied it, but she's done it. She's also a licensed geriatric rehabilitation nurse, and she used that training to apply sound healing practices in this hospital called the University of Alberta Hospital. But we're very glad to have you here, and maybe hear more about it sometime. So she's been here since 2005, right? No, you were in CSL Edmonton, Canada, correct? And so she was working there in the music ministry, and she's been here since 2012. Is that right?
I've been a practitioner since 2012.
Okay.
And I've been in New Mexico for 2.5 years.
She's been in New Mexico for 2.5 years, and she's been a practitioner since 2012, in case you didn't hear her. And we're just glad that you found your way to Las Cruces. Of all the places in the world, like so many of us, what are the odds? And here we all are together. It's so excellent, and I'm so happy to have you speak today. And we'll go easy on you. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay. Liliane Pilot, thank you. Let's see how this all works out.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You have no idea how happy I am to be here. We were told that normally it's a 3 or 4 hour crossing from the Juarez airport, and we made it from the Juarez airport to the El Paso airport where we were being picked up in 45 minutes. So I did get several hours sleep instead of no sleep, which I'm really pleased about. I talk a lot about correct identification, about who and whose we are, identifying with the real, with God. Identification, correct identification. I always hear that letter A, we put the emphasis there. The A, the alpha, it signifies the first, the principle, the dominant, the beginning, identification. That A, for me, is a reminder to put God first. But remove the A, and we end up with identifiction, false identifying, a made-up sense of who we are. When I was in my 30s, I was just full of piss and vinegar. I'd gone through a divorce, I'd come out the other side of a divorce, I had 2 beautiful sons, I'd just gone back to college and gotten a degree in arts administration. I was starting to do music for the first time in my life. I started a band, and we were recording, we were playing all over the place, and I had a number of pretty cool projects, which seemed impossible at the time, but you know how those things go. You believe in them and you want to do them, and so you do. And as I said, I was on fire, and I didn't recognize impossible, so I just went ahead and did stuff. And over the years, I noticed that some projects flew, and others just couldn't seem to get the momentum to get off the ground. And I wondered what the difference was for a long time. And I finally realized it was a matter of mental equivalence, period. It was a matter of the container that I had in which to hold and create and generate success. Success being the fulfilling of my desires. I spoke a few Sundays ago about how it had seemed difficult in my life to hold on to abundance. That was a little bit of a slippery slope for me. I accidentally gave away $200,000 to various people who probably really didn't deserve it. But they were better at getting it than I. And then I remembered this time when I was like 14, and you know, we hadn't had a lot of money growing up, and I wore a lot of my brother's hand-me-downs. When I was 14 and I was going to high school, and I wanted my own winter coat. And I got my mom to buy me this beautiful leather coat. I really wanted it, and it was way more than she was prepared or really able to afford. But, you know, I did all the things a 14-year-old can do to get something that they want. And so I remembered the look of tension on her face when she paid for it, and every time I wore that coat, I felt guilty. It wasn't even warm. It was a thin leather coat with a lining. It wasn't suitable for a Canadian winter. And I realized that that little incident had started to create a container, started the beginnings of the weaving of the fibers of a container that I would continue to put threads through. It was a really profound revelation. And so I spoke about this a few Sundays ago, and I just declared the release of that. You know, wow, I see where this started. How cool is that? Declare victory, move on. And 3 days later, I was gifted with this trip to Mexico, which wasn't on my agenda. Someone was unable to go and gave me her spot. And I even got a better exchange on pesos than Bonnie did. I was cleaning our nature retreat, and I found a peso out on the deck. I was like, I'm serious. I took that down and went, where the heck did that come? Just sitting there on one of the planks. And then I received a statement for an investment. I retrieved a huge pile of mail from Canada early in July, and I opened up a letter, and there was a statement for an investment, which I thought was long dead and gone. And it turns out it's actually started to grow a little bit now. Okay. I see that I'm unraveling stories about lack and rewriting stories about abundance and potential and possibility and fulfillment and doing all the things I want to do. I always wanted to speak, and I moved to Las Cruces and I started speaking, all kinds of things. I have an art show at Creative Designs Gallery for the month of September. They texted me when I was in Mexico and said, would you like to be the artist of the month? Let me think about that. Okay. This is mental equivalence in action. I know you all know Emmet Fox, but just to fill that out, he was a New Thought spiritual leader in the early 20th century, and he said, we practice the presence of God by seeing Him everywhere, in all things and in all people, despite any appearances to the contrary. As we look about the world with the eyes of the flesh, we see the appearance of inharmony, fear, difficulty, and we must look through it to the truth that lies back of it. And as soon as we see this truth and see it spiritually, the appearance changes, because this is a mental world. Emmet coined the phrase mental equivalent and said that for anything you want in your life, you must supply yourself with a mental equivalent, and the thing must come to you. Without a mental equivalent, it cannot come. And he borrowed the expression from physics and chemistry. For example, engineers constantly have to work out the equivalent of one kind of power or energy in another kind of power or energy to create another situation or move into another kind of situation. In like manner, there is a mental equivalent of every object or occurrence on the physical plane. Again, we must believe we live in a mental world. So I go back to that talk a few weeks ago. I've been feeling supercharged, just re-enlivened. It's some really big monkey fell off my back. That was a really good one. And, you know, I identified a false belief, and then I felt an internal shift. Do you get that part? I felt an internal shift. So my brain was able to go, wait a minute. It's not just blah, 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 upstairs. You know, I think of the mental equivalency like the environment, or like weather. So the climate is all the thinking and stuff going on, but the actual location, geographic location, the environment where you live, that is your core beliefs. So even if it snows in July, you know that that's not the truth. So I identified a false belief, and I felt an internal shift, and then the material world has begun to shift around me to accommodate. I changed a mental equivalency that had forged a part of my identi-fiction. This is the nature of the material world, and so I have to ask, what's your ID? What's your identification? What have you chosen as your identity? Many people choose struggle. The obvious alternative is, of course, flow. But struggle is a popular idea. It carries its own mesmerizing force. Oh God, and then I had to take 17 buses to get to work, and I was late, and my boss called me in. It's, you know, it's pretty easy to get wrapped up in our stuff. And it's something that we've learned. It's something that's handed down. And even if not through our immediate family, it's certainly in our global history. The elders of the Arabi, I think that's the correct pronunciation, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, please. The elders of the Arabi people in Arizona say, banish the word struggle from your vocabulary and your attitude. They understood, as many others have, that the mental state of struggle perpetuates a condition of struggle. And Victoria Castle in the Trance of Scarcity, has anybody read that book? Oh, it's a wonderful book. I really recommend it. She said, if struggle were the way to get there, we'd all be there by now.
For sure.
We are having a unified experience in that we are all God expressing, that we have an individualized expression. We're all playing in the same sandbox, but we get to build our own sand castle. So are you building a row of low-income housing, which, by the way, would be a nice thing to do for some people, but, you know, or are you building dream homes by the sea? You know, you're building your own castle, and you get to pick what it looks like. In the Trance of Scarcity, speaking of castles, Victoria Castle looks at what eclipses our greatness, what stops us from being the fullest expression of the divine that we can be. What is stopping us from being the fullest expression of the divine that we can be? It's also an individualized question. And after working with thousands of people, she repeatedly encountered the theme, I am not enough, not good enough, rich enough, smart enough, young enough, old enough. and hand in hand its partner in crime, there is not enough. Not enough time, not enough money, opportunity, love. So let's be clear here. God is infinite, God is abundant, and God is everywhere present. Would you join me in that? God is infinite, God is abundant, and God is everywhere present. She suggests that this not enoughness cripples the lives of those who would otherwise live lives of passion and buoyancy. It shows up privately as self-doubt and overconsumption. That's another trance of scarcity. It's not going to be any more. I better get all of it. And it appears publicly as elitism and a complete disregard for future generations. Just saying. It laments the way things are, and it justifies the reasons it can't be different. The trance of scarcity. But it can be different. A life of fulfillment and vitality is as close as a decision to mess with our own beliefs. How willing are we to get in there and go, you're just so full of it. Let's have another conversation. I don't want to tell you how often I have that conversation. We must interrupt and dislodge old patterns that have been living quite comfortably with us. These old patterns, Castle says in this book, are like a cat that likes to sleep on your head, no matter how uncomfortable it might be for you. It's time to move the cat. Get off. As soon as something feels like it's slipped out of harmony, it's my opportunity to remember the truth of who and whose I am. To set my mind right. Right thought, right action keeps me in a mental state of feeling safe and lovable and abundant. And in this place, I can manifest more consciously the way that I would like to see my life unfold. At the conference we were just at, the Centers for Spiritual Living, Las Americas, it was a wonderful conference. It was astonishing what has been pulled together in Central Americas. Absolutely incredible. And there was Reverend Edward Viljoen, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and he asked several pertinent questions. He said, what is important to you? What would goodness have you do? What do you believe about how life works? And what inspires awe in you? I don't know if any of you know Lisa Ferraro and her partner Erica Luquette, who is sadly not with us any longer in form, but they used to sell this t-shirt and it said, if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. That shirt. And I grew out of it. Too funny. I realized that my answer to all those questions was God. God is important to me. Goodness, godness, would have me expand into the highest version of my godhood. And I believe that it is done to us as we believe. And witnessing God, acts of God, inspires awe in me. You know, when I was walking down the street in Chapala, I saw a man who was clearly infirm in a variety of ways in a wheelchair. And there was a woman kneeling on the pavement in front of him, and she was feeding him, and she was trying to get some food in his mouth, and he was having a hard moment, and she just put the food down, and she put her arms around him, and she kneeled in front of this wheelchair and hugged him, and she was soothing him and putting her hand down his back and holding his face, and I thought, my God, in the middle of town, on the street, giving the highest level of service and love to somebody who badly needed assistance. I was in awe. So I've ramped up my commitment to water God in my life. Wash a dish. Wash that moment. You're washing God. Dress God. Drive God to work. Infuse myself with the mind of God. God is everywhere, ever present. Another speaker from the conference, Kathianne Lewis, and I don't know if any of you have heard her, she is a marvel. She's an absolute wondrous demonstration of the divine in action. She's the senior minister in Seattle. I think she's been there 25 years. And she talked about a time when the bank that held their mortgage said, sorry, we were calling the loan. And they had until the end of the month to produce several $1 million. It was like, Kathianne and her board and, of course, various members of the congregation held consciousness for this. They sat in God. And by the end of the month, another nonprofit stepped up and said, we want your building. They paid them twice the current market value of the building, and they walked away with $12 million. That is mental equivalency in action. And on another occasion, she spoke about, and she gave me permission to share this story. She was diagnosed with a rather large tumor in her abdomen, and her physician said, this is serious and we need to operate like right away. Huge operation, will take a long time to heal. You're gonna have a big scar. And she said, no, thank you. No, I don't think you understand. This is really important. We really need to do this now. And she said, give me 3 months. And she, against the better advice of, or against the advice of her physician, she took 3 months, and she decided she was willing to have a bunch of little scars. It could be broken down, and she could have some little scars that didn't take very long to heal from, but she wasn't going to do that other thing. And she lay on the ground in her backyard, and she felt the earth beneath her, and she just immersed herself in God being for 3 months. She didn't lie in the backyard the whole 3 months. And she looked up at the sky, and she looked at the tomatoes growing on the vines over her head, and she lived and moved and had her being in the consciousness of her God being for 3 months. Went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, thank God, are you ready to, are you ready to have that surgery now? And she said, no, I'm ready to have you re-scan me like you promised you would. They did the scan and there was nothing there. This is her declaration, this is her story, and she said, please make sure that you mention this part. She was internally afraid that she had fear that it was ovarian cancer and that she was going to die. And she overcame that fear by putting her entire mental climate into God for 3 months. She's a powerful woman. On a slightly, it might appear like a less grand scale, there were these beautiful peacocks all wandering around all over the grounds, and I really wanted some of those feathers. In fact, I wanted a bunch of those feathers. I decided I want a bunch of peacock feathers. And I was walking around the grounds, I could find them, but just, little brown ones and whatever. And I wanted some of those big, beautiful, pretty ones. And I even talked to them for a little while. I sat down near them and I said, look, I'm just here for a couple of days, and I know you don't actually molt for about another 3 weeks, but if you could pony up just a couple of the pretty ones, I'd be really happy about that. I'm following them around. I'm on the last morning, and I don't have my big, beautiful feathers, and I went, okay, I've got I got a handful like this of feathers, okay? I asked for feathers, I got feathers, I surrender, I'm done. Good. And I just right then I spotted another one on the ground and bent over to pick it up, and a woman came out of the administration office and said, "Do you want some feathers?" Plum, quieren pluma? Or whatever, my Spanish is terrible. And she walked around the corner, went into a room, and came out with this handful of these big, beautiful white ones, some from the white peacock, and a bunch from the colored ones, this mitt full of feathers. And I was just walking into town to get some lunch, and I thought, well, that's amazing. How the heck am I going to get these home? And then I found some clean cardboard that I could fold and put them inside, and then this lady handed me a roll of tape. And great, and I taped it up, and I stuck it in my backpack, and got a whole bunch of peacock feathers. And so, you know, size and quantity isn't really a thing in the divine. It's only a thing in your brain. What is the size of your container? What do you wish to grow? And I think we confuse manifestation sometimes with grand events. Big healings like the mortgage or the tumor are exciting to talk about. But what if we got excited by everyday manifestations, like finding a pretty feather? When we engage in correct identification, we live in the knowing that we are God, being God, and when we are in Identi-fiction, we forget that we are creative, we forget that we are godlings, and we forget that where we stand is holy ground. I just got another little story for you. Buckminster Fuller. Probably none of you have ever heard that name either. He was contemplating once what one little man could do. And he thought about the ship, the Queen Mary, you know, this huge ship going by. And then there's the rudder at the stern. And then there's a little thing on the edge of the rudder called a trim tab. Sorry. And it's like a miniature rudder. And it creates a low pressure point that moves the big rudder, and then the big rudder moves the entire ship around. A tiny, tiny adjustment of the trim tab changes the course of everything. So as we observe and shift our tired old stories, we witness life around us move into empowering and life-affirming moments. And when we identify with those moments as our true nature, they blossom into our experience. So let's notice those little moments. Adjust the trim tab. And declare victory and move on. Who are we really? I think the answer to that lies in our willingness to surrender, to allow ourselves to unfold into a good that we perhaps cannot yet conceive of. Rome wasn't built in a day. Change is immediate, actually, across all space and time. We did a family constellation workshop down there. It was astonishing. Change is immediate, but it may take some time to become visual in the manifest world, become perceivable in the manifest world. So start where you are. Upgrade your stories to ones where you win, where you find yourself blissfully living the life that you want to live. Holmes said in his Beverly Hills lectures, also a book that I like, the whole process of evolution was necessary for the emergence of cosmic individualization, that every man might be on the pathway of his own life, that every man, whether he knew it or not, might set the law of his life, for there is no law other than the law that he sets, as it comes in conjunction with the one universal law of cause and effect. He cannot change the law, but the very power which limits and binds him, rightly used, can free him. There is nothing between us and God but our own thoughts and beliefs. This is how We change our story from identi-fiction to identification. This is how we keep our A game. And remember, A means the alpha, and it stands for avatar, authenticity, abundance, ascension. So let's all ascend to our highest selves and leave fiction behind. Yay me and praise God.
Yeah.
You're awesome. That's a great word. Awesome. Thank you very much. Shall we try to get her back down from Crowdcroft again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Prepare our self-love, our self-compassion, right. Be comfortable. Relax, recognize and release. And allow your attention to move gently to your chest. Breathe in the healing breath of the divine, of God's loving breath. Breathe in, relax, recognize, release, and let go. Let go of all of it. Cares, concerns, stress, tensions. Breathe in. Relax. Relax here. Picture, feel, and sense the love and compassion of the universe, of God, the divine healer, and the source of all love. Breathe in, breathe out, and become aware of the beating of your heart. Relax, recognize, release, and allow your beautiful heart. Surround your heart with compassion. Sense the feeling. Your heart has come a long way. It's left behind hurts and opened and reopened you to love. What a beautiful, caring, compassionate heart. What a beautiful, caring, compassionate you. Feel the divine healing love here in your heart. With each heartbeat, allow your compassion to grow. Feel the rhythm, visualize the energy growing. Relax, recognize, release, and allow. What a beautiful heart, filled with love, a love which grows even more in response to dear attention. A healing heart, sending love to every part of your being, like waves of loving, healing light, washing over you. Feel, see, hear the healing light washing over you. Know the divine light of love and compassion heals. You feel this love now washing over your feet. What beautiful feet. What compassion you feel for your feet, which have stood for you, walked with you, and rested with you. Now, with your mind's eye, follow the healing light of your legs. Dwell in this loving, healing compassion where you may feel it now in your ankles, knees, hips, and allow. Now relax, recognize, and release as the light of love moves up your spine, into your shoulders, releasing those responsibilities, those old ideas that do not belong to you. Feel them relaxing as you let go. Rest your awareness of the energy as it moves, now down your arms and into your hands. Feel your compassion for these areas with each beat of your heart and rhythm of your breaths. Imagine your tingling hands sending light, sending this light, this loving healing into your lower torso, your upper torso, healing everything. So very grateful for God's compassionate, perfect healing. Again to your chest. Breathe, relax, recognize, release, and allow. Allow healing with each beat of your heart. Know the love and compassion in your heart grows. Feel this loving light now move into your throat. Relax, recognize, release, and allow. Notice it now as it gently moves around your neck, your face, through and around your head. So that this energy, this healing energy, this loving energy is active within and throughout you and your entire being. From the tips of your toes to the crown of your head. Relax, recognize, release, and allow. Allow your mind to still. Let go of all blocks. Let go of all mistaken thoughts. Surrounded by and filled with God's infinite love and compassion, allow that which is within to grow. Grow and expand to fill this room, surround the city, country, and world. With the beat of collective hearts everywhere, we share our God-given love and compassion with this world. Recognize, release, and allow. Share your God-given love and compassion with your past, your present, and future self. Relax, recognize, release, and allow. All is well here now. Allow this knowing to grow. All is well here now. Allow your compassionate consciousness to be and grow, and bring it back with you. Bring it back. All is well. All is well with you and your world, right here, now. Divine order is now manifest. Abundance is now manifest in every aspect of your life and being. Gratitude manifests and fills your wakeful being now. And so it is. Amen.